Sorry. Put your behind on the floor. Put the back of your front on the floor. Put your better half on the floor. Put your better side on the floor. Now I'm going to just make all these mistakes. I'm going to get really self-conscious. Okay. So this is lesson 11 in the ATM book. And the title is, let me just double check. It's a long title, so I just want to get the words exactly right. Short title is Becoming Aware. The long title is Becoming Aware of Parts of Which We Are Not Conscious with the Help of Those of Which We Are Conscious. That's the title. So in my mind, it's the ball rolling over the body lesson. So lie on the floor, lie on your back, and notice the length of the right leg. Noticing where does your mind go to determine the start and the finish of your leg? So then maybe there's a fuzzy part about where you think the right leg starts, or maybe in your mind the right leg starts with the toes or the heel and travels upwards. Maybe the right leg starts somewhere around your hip joint. How clear is the sort of leg versus not leg? Is there a sort of a leg-ish area, kind of leg-ish? And is it the same on the left side, the left leg? Does the left leg start in kind of the same kind of place? Is that leg-ish area? Sort of leg-ish, sort of leg, sort of not leg. Move that part of you. And the length between that and the left heel or the toes. However you experience the length of that left leg. And the left arm. Where do you start? Where does your attention start when you direct it to the left arm? And sensing the length of the left arm. What's arm? What's arm-ish? What's another fundamental Christian movement in the Midwest of America? That's arm-ish. I'm just checking to see who's awake. If you didn't laugh, you're asleep, and I'm going to come and walk up to you and stare at you. Huh? Just not find me amusing? Oh, Anna, I find that so hard to believe. Like, no, I really don't think that that's a possibility. I think if you are awake, you will find me amusing. There is no third alternative there. Okay. So the right arm. Is the start and the finish of the right arm. Clearer, not as clear as the left arm. And roll on to your stomach. So there's another thing that we don't bother with, mostly teaching ATM, and that's saying please. It isn't transactional. And I'm not being polite, I'm a teacher. roll onto your stomach. If you don't want to, you don't have to, of course. But I'm not going to say please. Now, if that means that your internal parent is going to smack you for not saying please, I don't know, you're going to have to get over it. Because actually, if I keep saying please, you probably will get annoyed. Please roll onto your stomach. Please lift your shoulder. Please do this. Please do that. Huh? Yeah, please shut up. Yeah. So, you know, deal with your own inner politeness. Okay. Now, again, establish sort of the internal representation of leg. So there's this idea of leg in your brain, in your mind. And then there's the right leg and the left leg. So there's two distinctions for leg. And in particular, become aware of your right heel extending up from the right heel, the right calf. And imagine that somebody puts their finger on the back of your right calf. And they know exactly where the back is. They run their finger down the back of the calf, their right heel, and back again. You continue to imagine the path that that finger makes. So I'm teaching this as pretty much as he writes it. And notice, this is not what I would say for teaching class normally, but for some people, the notion of a finger running down the back of their leg is perfectly fine. For other people, it's actually slightly creepy. So notice for yourself what that might be, what your response is, what you're totally neutral about it or whatever. Okay. Now imagine that you've got a ball, a little round ball, perfectly smooth, kind of cool so that you can really feel where it is. And it's been placed on the back of your right heel. And now imagine that that ball is running along that calf from the right heel, and it goes all the way along the back of the calf, up the back of the right knee, and back again. And your imagination continues to track that ball rolling slowly, gently up the back of the right calf, rolling between the right heel and the right knee. It's like it's got a little groove there. And then the next time that the ball is rolling up towards the back of the right knee, it keeps going up the back of the right thigh. In the direction of the right buttock, maybe around the sit bone, somewhere around there. And it eventually gets all the way up to the right buttock, and then it rolls back down again to the right heel. And is there a tendency for the ball to run faster in some areas, and slower in other areas? Are there parts of this pathway where the ball just doesn't feel quite so clear, other parts where it feels really clear? You really know where it is, you can imagine it clearly. You continue to let the ball roll from the right heel up to the right buttock via the back of the right knee. Now, if you haven't already, have your arm, at least your left arm, on the floor so that your hand is above your head on the floor. So some of you have got both hands up there already, that's why I've put that. But at least your left arm. In fact, have your arms symmetrical. So bring your arms on the floor above your head comfortably. This is always the beautiful moment where you really see who's asleep. Have the arms down. Okay, and now imagine that same ball, that same kind of friendly, light but clear ball has been placed on the back of your left wrist. Just nestled in the left wrist. And it's going to roll from the left wrist up the back of the forearm to the left elbow. So from the back of the left wrist up to the elbow and back again. And again, notice the path of the ball, a little groove that might be there in your imagination to allow the ball to run relatively straight from the back of the wrist up to the elbow. Maybe next time it runs down the forearm, it crosses the wrist and goes more to the back of the hand, more onto the back of the hand, I should say. And keep the ball rolling up. And next time the ball is rolling from the hand in the direction of the elbow, allow the ball to continue rolling across the elbow and up the back of the upper arm so that it rolls in the direction of the shoulder blade. The left shoulder blade. And then when it gets to the left shoulder blade, it changes direction and gently, clearly, quietly rolls from the left shoulder blade back to the left hand via the elbow. And again, notice the clarity of the path. Is there parts where it's not quite so clear in your mind's eye? Parts where it's really clear? Parts where it's sort of clear? Are there parts where your imagination goes faster? Skip over those parts a bit quicker, or where it slows down? And leave it. Rest. Stay on your stomach, but just find a place that's restful. Allow your mind to let go of the ball. Come back to that position so that your arms are on the floor and the hands are above the head on the floor. The legs are long. And place the ball on the right heel. So the imaginary ball is now back on the right heel. And this time, you actually know that gravity exists. And actually you need to lift your leg to start the ball rolling along the back of your leg to the knee. So go ahead and start to lift the leg in such a way that it would in reality allow the ball to roll. Along the back of the calf, all the way up to the knee. You can go back to the heel once or twice. Really clarify how slowly you would have to lift and lower the leg to propel the ball towards the knee and then have the ball roll back to the heel. Now, when you're ready, the next time the ball's rolling to the knee, keep lifting the leg such a way that the ball would continue to be propelled downhill, as it were, towards the hip, towards the back of the hip, buttock. And then you kind of catch it in the buttock. And then how do you lower the leg? With what kind of timing that would use gravity to bring the ball back down to the heel. And continue to send the ball up and down the back of your leg, between the heel and the buttock, with this idea of the ball rolling smoothly and uninterruptedly along this groove. And that you're timing the imaginary ball with the lifting and lowering of the leg in a way that's kind of plausible. Okay, good. Leave that. Now imagine that the ball is on the back of the left hand. And begin to lift the left hand in such a way that would roll the ball with the left elbow and back the hand. So lifting and lowering whatever needs to be lifted and lowered. Propel the ball along this groove between the back of the left hand and the left elbow. How would you time the lifting and the lowering of the forearm? And then have the ball continue to roll. So maybe, balls don't like to roll around right angles. So maybe the arm needs to lengthen a little bit. So maybe some of you got the elbow quite bent. What would make it more plausible? The shape of the arm, so that you can now roll the ball all the way up to the left shoulder blade via the left elbow. And continue to have the ball rolling between the back of the left hand and the left shoulder blade. Then maybe at some point the ball wants to go beyond the left shoulder blade and it wants to roll across the back to the left hip. And then cross over the left hip at the back and run down the back of the left leg. Excuse me. And when the ball gets to the left heel, it pauses there just for a nanosecond, and then you lift the left leg to send the ball back via the left hip to the left hand. And how slowly does the ball have to go so that you can track it at every time in your little internal mind GPS. So it's the left arm and the right leg. So going from the left, back of the left hand to the right heel. So if I said it the other way, you all know. So the right heel and the left hand. That's it. And this is where you get to imagine that your bum is flatter than it really is. And again, are there parts of this pathway where the flow of the ball is really clear? And other parts where, like, it kind of goes into a forest and you can't sort of see it. You know roughly where it is, but it's not so clear. Or parts that it wants to go faster and slower. Leave it and rest on your back. One of the questions that you ask yourself is how long a break, how long a pause, how long a rest do people need? The $64 million question. It's a bit, you know, like asking how long is the piece of string. It's as long as it needs to be. Which is not a satisfying answer. So what tells me that it's time to get you to roll? Well, partly it's because I'm looking at the clock and I have an idea about how long this lesson should go for, how long your attention will last. And also I'm looking at the quality of the rest. If I see people start really drifting into torpor, you know, like really resting so much that I've lost them, that's too long a rest. It might be too long a rest when they get fidgety. They're no longer processing usefully. So please roll back onto your tummy. And how did you feel when I asked you please to roll back? Did it have any influence or not at all? Didn't even notice. Just think, oh, thank goodness she's being polite for a change. She stopped being so bossy. I could say it like this. Please roll onto your stomach. which is hardly polite. No, I don't know what you're talking about. And lie with your left cheek on the floor and your arms somewhat extended above your head. And imagine the ball on the back of the right heel, and lift your leg in such a way that it allows the ball to roll up the length of the right leg on the back of the calf, passing over the back of the knee, the back of the thigh, passing over the back of the right hip, across the buttocks and lower back, towards the left shoulder blade, crossing over the left shoulder blade, along the back of the upper arm, the left upper arm, the left elbow, left forearm to the hand. And then lift the left hand to lift the left arm and the hand and the arm to send the ball back down over the left shoulder blade. And when the ball gets to the small of your back, the lumbar spine, that hollow, the inward curve of the back, the ball can kind of stay there, and lift up the right leg and keep the left arm elevated as well, and find a way that you could just roll the ball up and down a little bit in that diagonal, so it always stays in that spine, in the trunk. But there is a lift at the top end that sends it more towards the buttock, and then the buttock lifts a bit more to send it more to the left shoulder. And you can kind of seesaw there, so that the ball never leaves that zone, but it rolls in that diagonal. And how clear could that be? That rolling in between the left shoulder blade and the back of the right hip, using the lifting of the arm and the leg to change the direction. And continue to do that, and notice the breath. The breath, or notice your breath. Whose breath would you like to notice? That's it. And then slowly increase the range of the rolling of the ball so that it can go over the buttock down to the heel. And then back from the heel up to the buttock, across that lumbar zone, that geographic region, all the way to the hand. And then from the hand all the way back down through that geography, over the terrain of the back to the left heel, to the right heel. And leave it and rest. Rest on your back. Rest on your back, because this is your last rest. And once again, scan yourself with this idea that we introduced at the beginning of the lesson, where you pay attention to the length, the sense of length of the right leg, where the right leg starts and it finishes, compared to the left leg. And maybe all the spots along the way, the path along the way of that length of the right leg and the left leg. And compare the two in terms of the clarity of the length and the actual length of the leg. The ease of sensing. And then with your arms as well, sensing the length of the right arm. Paying attention to where your mind pinpoints the beginning of the arm to the end of the arm on the right, and then comparing that to the left. What's the influence of this both imaginary and active exploration of these lines using the imaginary ball? And maybe why did he call this becoming aware of the parts of which we are conscious, unconscious by means of the parts that we are conscious? Slowly roll over to one of your sides and come up to sitting. And then standing. Imagine that it's Monday afternoon and you've got 4 more days. Orientation is everything, doesn't it? How would your orientation change if you suddenly heard it was Monday? Yay, good response, Sue. Correct answer. Yay, it's the correct answer. Okay, walk a little. And is there any vestige of this sense of the line of the back of the right leg across the back of the trunk, from the back of the right hip to the left shoulder blade, and from the left shoulder blade to the back of the left hand? So how easy would it be to reestablish that connection? And you can stop and stand and reestablish the line and then keep walking. And just keep exploring that. So how dynamic is this image? How dynamic these parts of yourself of which you are conscious and not so conscious? How does that translate into something as dynamic as walking? And have a short 3 minutes, 20-second break. Yeah.